Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Today, we're probably going to have an average length show because we're going to review regenesis. I know I'm late to the party. I know there's already previews out, and everybody's cracking those little Ziploc bags of very high priced X-Men. And so let's go into it. Let's ask ourselves a couple of questions. Question number one: is it worth playing Regenesis? Question number two: what is probably going to be the long term price of this set? And I guess question number three is is this going to have an impact on the game? So let's go and jump right into it, as Philly D says. All right. First off, there's Wolverine, a good staple to build your force around. Just functionally overall, the precision strike 12 attack, it's nice. There's enough places on the Regenesis maps for him to hide the heck out and be safe on approach. So playing him at 120 is not bad if you didn't pull well. I'll really briefly say this. If you're doing like the 200, then the 300, and then the 400 build up with keeping your figs and whatnot, I would just recommend, your first week, play Wolverine at 120. There's just very few characters that can just beat him. With two actions, your opponent has to literally double tap you to try to get you off of stop clicks, because if not, you're just going to heal back up. Mainly because of this trait, I stand with Wolverine at the beginning of the game. If Wolverine is part of a Jean Grey School of Higher Learning theme team, replace this character. Oh, never mind. Other trait. Healing factor. Toughness. When Wolverine clears one or more action tokens, heal him one click. So, yeah, he can go. He has Endom. There's not a ton of Endom in this set. Just Wolverine is a beast. He is a definite beast. Let's go ahead and move on down. We have really quick, let me just say this. I'm not going to put too much emphasis on their 0.1 dial or cost or whatever. I'll just try to lump the two together. But yeah, with Wolverine, if he's on the, Jean Grey School or whatever, he gets the free heal one every click, or free heal Wolverine one click. He doesn't have to clear tokens, so yay. Then there's Cyclops. Again, for the event, definitely the first month, Cyclops is really good. If you can have more fodder around him, he's almost unkillable. And I just say that from playing against him. He's pretty much almost unkillable. If you have someone else, that could constantly just be landing attacks with adjacent to Cyclops. I'm not adjacent to Cyclops, landing attacks with was it Utopia? He gets to heal two clicks, which is really huge. Definitely check that out. I would say in this case, if he's not on a Utopia team, he heals one. If he is on a Utopia team, he'll heal two if a friendly character hits an attack. I think this has maybe some long-term potential. I know some folks will say hey, Edward, look, there is a ton of problems here because 50-point Cyclops still exists. And I understand that 50-point Cyclops does still exist. But 70-point Cyclops has a stop click and the potential to heal back up off his stop click. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at that. So I think this is probably the first one that actually has some competitive potential, is 70-point Cyclops for standard 300 point meta. All right, next up is Kitty Pryde. Only thing we really need to know about Kitty Pryde is she drops that Lockheed bystander. And I know a lot of people have said, like, hey, check this out, Kitty Pryde spam. Oh, it's so awesome. Unfortunately for me, I am not in that Kitty Pryde spam attack. Definitely with ID cards or playing multiple Kitty Prydes and then having her drop Lockheed's. Mainly because when we look at Lockheed's stats, he's a 8 movement, 10 attack, 17 defense, energy shield deflection with energy explosion and 1 damage tiny. That's not good. That's really not good at all. Now, the counter argument can be made as well. Look, hey, Edward. Hey, Lockheed is a ranged character. You're getting enhancement. You get 2 Kitty Prydes. Now you're dropping Lockheed down, and he's throwing out 3 damage. Okay, and I get that. I definitely get that. The problem that I have is that it's a once per game generation. This isn't like Medusa's hair, which you would have thought, yeah, I have something like Medusa's hair that can keep being respawned. Maybe, just maybe, we could have gotten that with Lockheed. Unfortunately, we didn't. And so, with most people, you're going to be playing her on every other team. So that Lockheed isn't going to be autonomous. Okay. So it's just another character on the field just sort of taking up actions. So do I see it being used as a call-in? Yes. Do I see it, definitely making a bit of a meta splash? Yes. Mainly if there is any sort of swarm-ish type of we need to stand adjacent because we are Legion type thing. But other than that, no. Like, I think Kitty Pryde is unfortunately not one of the main characters that we're going to be looking at from the set. She has meta potential. She has competitive potential. But my overall thought is that she's going to fill niche roles in the ID card meta. Next up is Storm. Some people would say, hey, Edward, are you disappointed in this Storm? And my answer is no. Mainly because this is a better 50-point Storm than the other Storm, sort of. If you're looking at a 50-point Storm. So, yeah, there we go. The fact that you get Sidestep or Force Blast when playing with her standard is a good thing. She can make a ranged target attack targeting a single character after that Storm's knockback. Hold on, wait. Free, make a ranged attack targeting a single opposing character that Storm knocked back this turn. So the ability to sort of double tap people is pretty good. All right. Now you could do a couple of cool things. First thing that you can do is just go ahead and pick Force Blast, knock that character back, take the free shot. So that's great. Okay. If you're already sort of on the edge or in a weird situation, you could just choose to use Force Blast in your attack, hit them, knock them back if you hit, and then attack them again. So the ability for this character to double tap is really good. Now, how does this Storm compare against my other Storm options? Really, she's only good if you need a bunch of low point options. Because realistically, the prize support Storm, the upcoming Asgardian Storm, and classic Phoenix Force Storm, all of those Storms are just better because they just do more damage output. This is pretty good. Now, I will also say this. On a X-Men theme team with a good chunk of, girl power Moira McTaggarts, this could get full-on stupid. Okay. Now, I know some folks will be like, with the Wolverines in the Flurry. yeah, and I know some folks are going to say this is not guaranteed flurry, Dark Logos, and I understand it's not sort of guaranteed flurry, but functionally this is range flurry. If you're able to pick characters that you can knock back, you can you can double tap characters, which definitely becomes a thing. If I can make a character or make the storm 11-4, then yeah, that's great for me. I'm not going to say go crazy and make a storm a 13-6 on a turn. That's not a good idea. But definitely looking at how everything is set up, I gotta say, like, yeah, 50 points, she's not bad. I know people are also going to say, but Edward, she's 4 clicks deep. I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying there's not risk there. I think there's some good design potential there. Is this good for your, regenesis stuff? Man, depends. It depends on what you pull. I would say you definitely want some perplex. So, yeah, that's the best thing I could say. Next up is Beast. Now, Beast, on the other hand, this is going to make a bit of a splash, and here's why. All right, so again, the point isn't so much, hey, here is 70-point Beast. But from an ID card perspective, and actually, even if you wanted to do him main force, let's sort of break it down. He has his trait, let the beast out, and I think this is what puts him over the top. Free, choose one, outwit, or battle fury and modify beast combat values by +1 because by +1. Beast can use the chosen effects until your next turn. So here's the cool thing: do you need a character that can be flexible? Call in character that can be flexible for an outwit, or a character on your team that's flexible for an outwit, or a complete stat bump that could just stat bump himself and have battle fury to go against shape change characters, which are really, really common in this current environment. Yeah, Beast is the truth. So let's take it a step further. Okay, first off, one perplex with a Beast means that I can make this Beast charge for 5, have a 12 attack, have a 19 defense, or do 4 damage if he stat pumps himself. I can choose one of those options. And because I can choose one of those options, it puts me at a distinct advantage to scare the crap out of my opponent when I have him on the sideline on a student ID. Now, let's be honest, really up till now, you don't see that many Beast student IDs. You see them, but you don't, like, oh, yeah, Jean Grey, Cyclops student, like Harley ID. It's not like one of those main staples like the Ford food groups when you were a kid, and for those kids that didn't grow up on the Ford food groups, those people that grew up on the food pyramid, okay, I it didn't help us either way. We're all obese still. I guess bacon won in the end. So yeah, the overall Beast is good. He has too many elements that you can't ignore. Now I know I think he's good for main force on anything but an X-Men team. And I know, again, folks will be like, easy points, he's just going to get blasted. You just gave your opponent 40 points. But I would just say, like, look closer. Just look closer and ask yourself, is my opponent going to go after a 18 defense super sensor or 19 defense super sensor? And the answer is maybe not. Is your opponent just going to try to spend a bunch of energy just try to tag Beast if you have multiple other threats that are bigger than Beast? Probably not. I think there's a lot that comes in for his design. Okay, I think there's a lot that comes in for his design. If you're playing Regenesis, definitely be playing Beast at 40. Definitely play Beast at 40. If you don't have any other goodness out there to pump you up, play him at 70. I still feel like that's overcosted because you're not getting any greater stats, and that's one of the bigger problems that I feel about regenesis. Completely contradicting what I just said, there's Emma Frost. Now, I don't like Emma. I don't think she's good. I don't think, like, overall, she has a place in this game. In this, not, yeah, in the game overall. In the Regenesis event, she's okay. And that's how I look at it. Okay. Now, where is her advantage in the Regenesis event? Only on Utopia teams. Okay. Only on Utopia. And the reason why it's only on Utopia is because now she has invulnerability in Psychic Blast. And she has protected penetrate Psychic Blast. Alright. Now, let's break this down. If we already looking at the set, you see a lot of 3 damage. You don't see a lot of 4 damage. And you sure the heck aren't not seeing 5. And so her coming in at 90 points is a big FU point bank. It really is. It's a huge FU point bank. So because of that, most characters are not doing more than 4 damage in most situations. And so having invulnerability in her current dial length, I think it's like 8 clicks. Yes, 8 clicks. That's a lot to chew through at 90 points, giving her a distinct advantage. And game design said, you know what we're going to do and balance that out? We're going to make her have no movement attack. So, Emma Frost functionally is the Goliath, sort of. She's not a giant. She's just really tall, and you're playing basketball. It's not impossible to beat her. She's a little clumsy, a little awkward, but don't sleep on her. I would say for Regenesis. For everything else, this chick is not good. If you want to try to bait your opponent and trying to kill an ID, bring her in at 90 and just laugh. I don't recommend it. I really don't recommend it. Alright, next up is Gambit. I know people have been, sweating, crying, praying, finding, ancient gods to pray to get Gambit back in the game. And I guess those dark gods have heard your prayers because Gambit's back. And here we go. So, first thing, I'm just gonna say this: he's not old pimp Gambit. He's like okay, sort of great Gambit. Okay, that's pretty much what we're getting. And for the event, he's a game changer. For normal heroclix, he's okay. So Gambit has Perplex, which I think he's the only Perplex in the set. And we do research here on Starting Over Podcast. No. Hope Summers has Perplex, and Danger gets Perplex. Psylocke gets Perplex. Okay, so he's one of the few Perplexers, okay, in this set. Alright. Now, because he's one of the few Perplexes in the set, and he's probably a little bit more accessible, quote unquote, if you pull him, you sort of gotta play him for a multitude of reasons. Reason number 1, he has Perplex. Like you have 18s and 19s in the set, average 10 attacks for most characters. There's a few 11s out there and a few 12s. And so definitely having a Perplex just helps out. Next is he's stealth, which helps you in this Regenesis event a little bit better. Because I don't think there's really any improved targeting nor is hindering. So he could just stay stealth like 90% of the time. The next thing that's really great is that he can either choose to have energy explosion and force blast, or quake and giant reach too, and that's pretty good. It really is pretty good because you have the potential of getting a lot of control and then just telling people to get the hell away from you. Now there is I think there's one map that goes from elevation 3 to 2 to 1. And so there are points in which you could just force blast people off elevated with Gambit, and then have him sidestep, moonwalk back if you want him to. So, yes, I think Gambit is good. Is he as good as Storm? The answer is no. If you have Storm, I would play Storm. Is Gambit going to enter competitive play? Hell no. To the no, no, no. Yeah, he's not hitting competitive play. X-Men already gets perplex on the cheap, and a 10 attack is not going to help you because he doesn't do anything special with that 10 attack. At 80 points, he's not worth it. 50 points, he's not worth it. So this Gambit is for the people that love Gambit. That's it. Next up is Magneto. And Magneto is not good. He's not good for competitive at all. He can't compete with the other Magnetos. If you're going to look at him as a call-in, okay, but I would still argue there's better Magnetos, and there's bound to be a better Magneto in the X-Men set. So yeah, I can't really endorse this Magneto. So he has some cool things if he's on a Utopia themed team, where he has that magnetic field that's 4 squares out instead of 2, where you count as adjacent to him. That's pretty nice, but everything else, no, I don't think it's worth it. Next up are the rares. Now this is where some fun stuff happens. All right, first off, I have to say Rachel Summers is 100% all in. Gotta play that. For regenesis. At 100 points, you have to play Rachel Summers. She is just way too good. TK, and then TK as free, but only if Rachel Summers was targeted by an attack at your last turn. That's what you're going to be using normally in competitive. But if you put her on Utopia, she just gets telekinesis and telekinesis as free. So she can... Well, no, Jean Grey School, not... Yeah, she's on Jean Grey School. Sorry, I said Utopia. Functionally, if she's on faction, she is a mobile terror, because she can hypersonic speed out, attack, and then TK herself back for free, and be like, yeah, I who cares if I fail breakaway? I can TK myself back for free. Yeah, energy shield, toughness, and willpower in this format. That's pretty good, which puts her at like a 20, and there's enough hindering to make her potentially a 21 in most situations. Yeah, Rachel Summers for the win. Yeah, a must play for regenesis. As an ID character or a main force character, whew, that's different. Okay, so I've had in my mind what I call X-Men 2.0. And X-Men 2.0 pretty much says, can we play X-Men without the Blackbird and like 5 Wolverines? If we can, then great. We're good to go. And so the question is where does any other X-Men character fit in that X-Men 2.0 theory that I have? And I don't know if Rachel fits. Okay, I don't know if she fits or not. But she is, she's good. She's real good. All right, next up is Namor. And all I have to really say is I don't like Namor. I really don't. If you want the flurry charge and you want to pay the 70 points for him, and like, okay, there you go. Like, he's not bringing anything else fancy with him. If you can main force the Namor from Black Panther and Illuminati, there you go. I would rather you do that. But this guy is he's not the truth. Okay, like, he's okay. He is okay, and that's the problem. Is that he's okay. He doesn't offer anything that is good enough for me to justify him right now in the current game format. So, maybe in the future, if I could spam Namors or something, yeah, like, and that's a good tactic, okay, great. But not right now. Next up is Rogue. I like Rogue. And I know some of you might say, Dark Logos, why do you like Rogue? And pretty much, it's the ID. It's the ID. Being able to call in a 60-point charge quake, 11 attack, 3 damage with invuln and willpower is pretty good. I think the main thing that we need to consider is that when we look at the options for Rogue, we don't really have a super cheap option, and that this is functionally I would say the cheapest option that we have, so that low point teams could have a significant advantage while playing her. Also, the other thing with Rogue that is quite interesting is that, like, once she hits an opposing character, she can steal that power and use that power. And so I think it's like attack or damage power. And that is huge. And mainly from the damage power perspective, is that you go and you hit an opposing character. Let me just make sure here. Standard power. Never mind, it's not even attack or damage, it's just standard power. So she can go and hit somebody, gain a perplex, prob, outwit, and it helps your team. And I think that's something that's really useful. Now, if you're going to go and play her in a Jean Grey school team, then yes, now when she hits somebody, it sort of forms, as an outwit, because your opponent can't use those powers. But in competitive play, we're not really going to see that. So yeah, Colossus, not a fan. I have teammates that love them at the 70-point value, and even considering at the 100-point value, I'm just not a fan. If there's going to be 100 points and I'm going to pop an ID, then I'm going to look at, a higher point Rogue from the approved play, or even the Asgardian Rogue as an option before I look at this Colossus. And I know some of you might say, like, hey, Edward, what about the ID buff or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, if you want the ID buff, then you're going to play him anyway, because he's just going to primarily just sit there, or he's going to get off his one, mediocre attack and then whatever. But again, I have people that I know that love it. I'm just not for it. I know I'll get pushback from my bro Tom. We had a conversation about this today. So, yeah, I'm just not a fan. Next up is Iceman. I think Iceman is definitely one of the top characters from this set, top figures from this set, mainly at 50 points, that you have a willpower, toughness, and barrier with hypersonic speed, and he's also able to make barrier when he hypersonic speeds. So I just have to say, like, that right there is huge. On top of the fact, when he makes ranged attacks, he's able to fundamentally just say, hey, you either have -2 speed or -1 attack. And that's something that a lot of characters won't necessarily have a huge problem overcoming, but it's still a hurdle that adds to the survivability of Iceman and the rest of his team. He fits in this X-Men 2.0 mindset that I've had, which is how do you play X-Men without the Blackbird and a bunch of Wolverines from XSS. And I think that, this Iceman actually starts to round out that reality of, okay, let's see what we can do beyond just having a ton of charge flurries pop off at super cheap prices with stop clicks. While that is good, I think there's other things that we can look at. So speaking of other things and pretty much really, really good things, next up is Hope Summers. And I think by far she's the strongest character in this set. I think she has the most utility. And the main reason is because of her Mutant Messiah trait, which says free, choose an adjacent character. If the chosen character is adjacent until your next turn, Hope Summers can use the standard attack and damage power that character can use. So, why is this a big deal? So, you put her, let's just say, next to Astronomer. Okay, now she has prob. And, she has prob. Let's say that I put her next to Alex Wilder. Now, all of a sudden, she has shape change, prob, perplex, outwit, no matter what click she's on, as long as she's adjacent to Alex Wilder. For 40 points, that's an extreme amount of utility because functionally you're doubling your utility. And yes, if she's on a Utopia team, she's probably the most strongest combo you can have with Danger. Her and Danger is ridiculous. Like, I don't think there's much that can compete with that. But right there, I would just say, if there is something that's going to come out of this set that's going to change how we play, it's going to be 40-point Hope Summers. If, as long as someone realizes, like, hey, I can stack all these stupid powers on her, she's just going to be ridiculous. Okay? It's just completely ridiculous. The important thing is the can use part. I think that little clause there is going to be abuse in the future. Angel, real quick, he is decent. I would never play him at 70. Only play him at 40. If you're going to run an X-Men team for Jean Grey School team, only run him at 40. Don't run him at 70. It's not worth it. In the future, I just see that the biggest advantage for this figure is you're able to figure out how to send him downfield and then make him explode, or send him downfield and bring him back. If any of those two things can happen, then Angel all of a sudden becomes a tier 1 figure. Next up is Danger, and I would say she's best at 60 points, and she's not worth building around. And that if you play her on a Utopia team, she could pick whatever character, whatever powers on her card, which helps her be a lot more flexible. So you can have access to all the powers that are selected at low point dial, since it references the card, not necessarily the click number. So, Danger at 60 points is a pretty good play for the event. Overall, I don't see her having a real impact on the game. Now, if there's some cool stuff that happens with robots or Shi'ar, maybe. If some other cool dynamic comes out with X-Men, maybe she can be a part of it too. But as it is right now, not really. All right. Next up is the Chases. I have to be honest. I think Cannonball is a good pick for the event, but for competitive overall, I think that he's just okay. I don't think he offers enough unless there is something that happens in the next few months or even years that's just like, hey, we need to get rid of all this blocking terrain. Blocking terrain is a problem. If so, his cheap improved movement destroys blocking terrain is a huge boon for players. Next up is Magic. I like Magic mainly because if you look at it like this, Magic is a more aggressive version of Lila Cheney for 15 more points, because I do recommend playing magic at her lower point value. For 15 more points, you have a character that can attack, that also has Blaze Claw's Fangs, and can get characters into the fight. And I know a lot of people will say, but Edward, she's only going to have an 8 attack when she attacks, so she's carrying 2 characters. That's fine. I'm not really stressing about that. What I'm mainly looking at is having a character in there that if I'm not quite at that point cap, and I'm already getting IDs from the headmasters, and I already know what type of equipment I'm going to run, or I'm going to not run equipment at all, then I think this character is something that you might want to weigh with Lila Cheney if you're looking for alternative carrying methods. So I definitely like that. Next up is Warbird. Just don't. She's a waste of points. Just don't even think about her. She's not good for anything. Then we have Psylocke. Now, Psylocke at 40 points, I think, is the second most impactful figure in this entire set. Now, I think there is a point which we have to elaborate on that. Well, first off, is we have to look at her trait, which is Incapacitate. When she uses it in hits after resolutions, choose a standard attack or defense power the hit character can use, and that character can't use the chosen power until your next turn. This is nice because you're able to say no super senses for you, no imper for you, no psychic blast for you, no precision strike for you. Plus I'm a perplex, plus I'm a sidestep, plus I'm stealth. So if she's at the right distance and whatnot, she can sort of sashay herself, potentially away, or a good enough of a distance to get off field potentially in some situations. But she comes in and she can either be a nice support figure. She has precision strike, so she can do a minimum 1 damage against most opponents. And she's stealth, so she is somewhat more defendable of a piece, and she's inexpensive with good values for her call-in at 40 points. She is dual target, so you functionally could shut down you could shut down 2 characters, and that can turn the tide of battle real quick with a Psylocke. So I definitely have to think that this character is going to be very useful in the upcoming months. Definitely when we look at this reality that we're dealing with right now. What is Kobik doing? What is Thanos doing? They're taking away team abilities and protections. And then once those team abilities and protections are taken away, they're getting outwitted and then getting lit up. What happens for most other teams to combat this? It's really hard. So if you're fighting a Thanos and you're fighting a Kobik, and all of a sudden you're like, boom, I call in Psylocke, perplex up her attack and once or even twice, 12 on a 19 to hit Thanos. Okay, boom, I hit with the incap, and all right, great. I now I've incapped Thanos. Now I don't have to worry about Mystics because I'm just incapping, and now I'm going to take away his invincible. And then you just follow it up with just like a solid attack to do a lot of damage as much as you can. And then boom, Thanos takes 6. Could be a thing. So this is a reality that I see that's a real game changer. And like I said, she is probably the second most useful character in this set in terms of her being part of the common competitive scene. So let's look at the LEs real briefly. Let's just look at the LEs instead of briefly. Wolverine is bad. He's not good for competitive. He's really not good for anything that you want right now anyway. I know you could say hey, what about the Weapon X thing, which is free, make a close attack, but only the target and adjacent character that hit Wolverine with an attack since your last turn. When a friendly character is KO'd, after resolutions, remove an action token for Wolverine. Again, this requires him to be based and staying alive, and I don't see that happening in the current format. Next up is Cyclops. This is actually potentially could be a game changer for a couple of reasons. First off, he has assembling interdimensional X society during force construction. Characters with keywords that begin with X gain the X-Men keyword. That right there is huge. So your X Factor, X Force, Ecstatics, all of those all fall into one giant pimp force. And buddy, it will be a pimp force, all right. So there is that. So just for bigger point games, or even potentially, more dynamic games or team designs can happen with this Cyclops. At 100 points, he is worth it. At 70 points, he is not worth it, in my opinion. Unless you're just having him there for his trait. Then Magneto's mental shielding helmet, protected mind control, outwit, and penetrating psychic blast. Now that really just primarily matters for top dial, but if you find a way of giving him, better defenses just through whatever game effects, then yeah, that can actually stack and be pretty strong. We can still do this if you all listen to me. Stop when this click is first revealed. After resolutions, heal Cyclops a number of clicks equal to the number of other friendly characters on your force. Yeah. That includes Pogs. That can be a stupid rally. That literally can be a stupid rally for Cyclops. Oh, you spent all that to get me to last click. Guess what, man? Your last action knocked me to last click. I'm all the way up. I'm all the way up to top click. Nothing can stop me. And then it's like, are you ready for the Cyclops party? Because it's about to pop off. So yeah, I think this character has potential. He's going to go somewhere, at least in locals. On the big scene at Worlds, I'm not quite so sure on that, but that's some goodness. That's some goodness right there. Next up is Gambit. This is the I think it's Horseman Gambit, and I'm sorry, Azareth, he's not that good. This has been a figure a teammate of mine has been wanting for a while. He has poison. When Gambit uses it, opposing characters within 3 squares are considered adjacent, which is like, yeah, okay, great. He has improved movement, ignores hindering. He also has Gambit deals penetrating damage, so I guess including all of his poison is penetrating. And then you got to take what's coming to you, homie. Incapacitate. When Gambit uses it, as close hit characters are given 2 action tokens instead, and gain immobile until your next turn. Now, this is a bit of a redeeming thing with Gambit, because to a degree he is doing the Kobik Trader trick for cheaper. The downside is it's not a perpetual like the Kobik Trader trick, and it's not an auto hit. And because of that, that opens Gambit up to functionally being less than what he could be, considering what's out there right now. So I know someone can make the argument, look, man, Kobik Trader is 115 points for Kobik, and then another 50 points for Trader. That's a pretty steep investment at 165 points versus 100 points. And yeah, I can see, it's not apples to apples. But the fact that I can do separate actions with that Kobik Trader combo, plus do the lockdown that Gambit's doing, is what's more saddening. I can do damage and lock you down. So, yeah, Gambit, he's not that good. I know my friend Azareth wants him, so good for him. Then there's Moondragon. And Moondragon has Sonic Arrows, incapacitate when Moonstar uses it. Also deal her damage value divided among her targets. Chosen for battle, stop invulnerability, super senses for the rest of the game. Moonstar can't be healed past this click. Now, I'm going to say this. This figure is really good. Really, really good. Now, I think somebody might say is like, man, you're high. Like, why am I running this figure? This doesn't make any sense. Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first reason is her incapacitate is good, and considering most of the other incapacitates we've looked at, the only one that is better is Psylocke. But for what we're doing and looking at right now, just for like competitive play, this incapacitate is solid. Go back to what I was saying about Gambit. What's Gambit's problem? Like, he's locking people down and he's not getting damage through. And what can Moonstar do? Lock people down and get some damage through. She has Stunning Blow for all you OG players built in. So because of that, in her survivability with the shape change and the sidestep, I think there's a lot to be said there. Also, there's other like cool stuff that we can do with her with other equipments that we have in the game. All right, so just think about her with exospecs. She can use charge with her sonic arrows because it's just incapacitate. She can also go hypersonic speed, not using sonic arrows. She can, use energy explosion with 2 targets. We could see, her being used with a multitude of the different Mandarin rings. Those are also options. And so with the stop click, the fact that it would keep her alive in the current game state and focusing and focus a decent amount of attention on her and forcing your opponent to put in a very solid double tap in on her. I think that's a big deal, considering that her stop click gives her invulnerability in super senses for the rest of the game, and then if she pushes off of it, she has combat reflexes, super senses, and invulnerability. That's a pretty nice setup. So, yes. Sorry, not for the rest of the game. I apologize. I didn't look at the period there. Yeah, so she has on her stop click invulnerability and super senses. So, just that click right there is really nice. All right, Archangel only at 75 points. Only at 75 points. Now, I think some of you might be saying, why is that? I'm like, for 25 more points, I'm not getting enough, especially in the defense category. And the dial length is a current victim of WizKids. Let me stack you with a bunch of powers and keep your dial short mindset. The damage values, if he was 12-4, and only 12-4 only can do melee attacks at 100 points, I would have been like, yeah, sign me up all day. I'm about that Archangel newsletter. Okay, but currently I'm not necessarily a fan. Is he horrible? No. 75 points, I feel like you maximize the best elements out of him, and you're able to go out there, reach out, touch somebody on the X-Men theme team, and manipulate your stats a bit more. So the better way of looking at this is I take Archangel at 75, I add in a Moira McTaggart, which is giving me a leadership in Perplex. And so with that 25 points, I'm better off spending it on a Perplex, and I can get my stats up, and when this character is pushed, I can up the stats of another character if that Moira is still on the field. So functionally, 75 points is a good idea. 100 points is a bad idea. The Angel of Death trait, steal energy, but with close or range, when Archangel uses it and heals, modify his defense by +1 until your next turn. I could, again, I see why that's there, and I see why his values are the way they are. I just would prefer that if he had at 100 points a 4 damage, or at least give me an 18 defense. So 75 points only. Next up is Magneto. And this Magneto is actually pretty good. We're getting Running Shot, Pulse Wave, Leadership. Unfortunately, no X-Men keyword, but he's Brotherhood, so it's okay. He has improved targeting, destroys, blocking, so he can Pulse Wave behind walls. And I think that part is ridiculously stupid. The fact that he can Pulse Wave behind walls or through walls. So there's a lot of shenanigans that can be presented with this Magneto. So definitely a good pick. I don't think he's going to be legal for Worlds, though. Because I know Wolverine and Cyclops came out this month. I'm assuming Gambit and Moonstar are going to come out in August. September would be Archangel and Magneto, so they would not be legal for Worlds. They would be legal the next month. Alright, so following up is we have Wolverine. This Wolverine is okay. He's just okay. And let's break down why. It says when Wolverine is hit with a range attack after resolution, you may place him in any unoccupied square adjacent to the attacker. If you do, heal him 1 click. Modify damage by +1 if targeting a character with a range value greater than 0. So, yeah, that can be really good. Then you have Toughness. When Wolverine is hit with an attack, the maximum damage opposing character can deal to Wolverine is their printed damage value, protected Pulse Wave. So, why is he just okay? Primarily because even though he can steal energy up, he's going to need something like Exospecs to give him hypersonic speed on his later clicks. So he's going to sidestep hypersonic speed and then get into position and do something. Oh, well, somebody shot me and now I can replace myself. And that is actually pretty good. I think that is a good thing about him. The problem that comes back is, alright, when you're adjacent to that character that just hit you, you have taken damage. And now you have to be mindful if you're dealing with a skillful player. They're not going to give you an opening where you can just maneuver where they can't do anything, to follow up. And so I think that that's a problem. But if we're looking at the future of X-Men, this character might actually be a really strong character-ish. So let's sort of break down the ish. Okay, again, with the right equipment, let's just say you're able to do Doc Ock arms and you're able to make it work. You sling out Wolverine, you go against somebody that has a range value, all of a sudden he's a 12-5, whap whap. That's pretty good. I think that's pretty solid. So, and then again, he gets shot at. All right, great. Then he teleports, to the other side, adjacent to the person that attacked him, and then he, the following turn, whap whap, and he heals back up. So there are some things that can make Wolverine really nice. You can give him Remake a Ring, and now he has Shape Change and Poison. And, oh, you shot me with your flimsy energy shield deflection guy. Guess what? I'm going to poison you, and then I'm going to punch you for +1 damage. So there is some potential there. I think he's just okay. Again, the X-Men 2.0 is the problem. Then I also had to say it's like him not being able to be carried past his opening click is another just huge downsell for him. And then we have Cyclops, which is trash. I mean, it's straight trash. And let's look at why he's straight trash. You have 4 range. you're the exact same stats as Wolverine, and you have uh, charge. Sorry, you have instead of charge, you have running shot, and you instead of blades and steel energy, you have psychic blast and range steel energy. Okay, so functionally, this is not good. This is not good at all. You really can't manipulate this to your advantage because most characters in the game are ranged characters that are being utilized. So you're not getting a damage bonus, and since you're not getting a damage bonus, how are you to hunt down most of these characters that are attacking you? Not only that, you have, how can I put it? Being able to sort of bamf around is nice, and it gives you some flexibility. But if I have to look at your range stat as your biggest downfall, then you have a problem. Now, is there a fix to this? Yes, Golden Age, and you slap a sniper rifle on it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You slap a sniper rifle on this dude and add in a Green Lantern battery or Orange Lantern battery, and Bob's your uncle. This dude is a beast. He becomes one of the best figures that the game ever produced. But outside of that, I can't endorse this figure whatsoever. All right, so let's look at this set overall. And I have to give this a B minus ranking as a set. It has the same problem that Civil War OP had for me. Civil War OP in and of itself was fun. It was hella fun. My problem with Civil War OP was that when you took them and you put them into general population, they got ran over like a freight train. Okay, that's my problem. Is they didn't stack up, and there was a handful of characters that were used for a brief bit, but overall, they weren't that good. And then even more so when we looked at whatchamacallit, the beginning of WizKids, short dials stacking powers. That was really Civil War OP, was really like exposing that mindset. I look at the same issue with Regenesis. Now, I know some of the people might say, like, hey, Edward, like, this still is sort of fun and sort of cool. I think it's worth it. And I do admit, if you're trying to play for the prize support, it is sort of fun. It is sort of cool. But other than that, for the price that's being charged, the values that are there, and the powers and stat values on the figures, I hate to say this, it's not a good buy. It's better as a secondary market buy. If it wasn't for the artificial scarcity that WizKids put on this set, there's no way that these figures are worth $5 a piece at starting price. There's no way. Okay? And there's no way, like, legitimately anyone should pay that much for most of these figures. And like I said, there's a handful of figures in the set that are really good. Should this set have had 1, 2, 3, 4 chases? Hell no. To the no. Hell no. Okay, you didn't need that much. You could have dropped Warbird. She was trash. Adding, kept Cannonball, kept Magic. Boom. You would have been far better off. Far better off. Just for a set. Hell, turn Warbird into Jubilee, or turn Warbird into Banshee, or to somebody else. Just hell, anybody else. Okay, I think that would have been better. Give me a Salisa Rise. I've been wanting her for years. Come on, WizKids. Force field, like free action. Put up 1 square of barrier. 35 points, invulnerability, 5 clicks. Yeah, come on, give me that. 35 points, X-Men team ability with support. Anyway, there's that and Maggot, but nobody's ever going to make Maggot. All right, let's be honest about that. That time is come and gone. But anyway, everybody wants Icon. Icon is way better than Maggot. Give me Icon. Yes, I do know about DC people. All right, so I just feel disappointed, and I know I said like, hey, this is like a B- set. It's not horrible. I mean, it doesn't stick in the back of my throat like a fishbone and says like, this is bad, but I can look at it and I can say the Wolverine is playable at locals, the Cyclops is playable at locals, the Storm is decent, Beast is going to show up. So yeah, Beast, Hope, Psylocke, these three, and the greatest of these, unfortunately, is Hope. But I mean, yeah, like those three characters you're going to see, and Gambit is okay. The main set Magneto's trash. Rachel Summers is pretty good. There's things in here like Rogue. Like Rogue is pretty good. Like there's enough figures for me to tell people, if you weren't able to get the Blackbird, if you weren't able to get a Lila Cheney, there is other things that you can do with X-Men that are competitive and creative and fun. But I still don't think that they have been brought up to Avengers level. Okay? And that's sort of sad that they haven't been brought up to Avengers level. And I think this is the set for them to have started that, laid the groundwork for that, and then give us X-Men the Animated Series. Now, this is the design thought process that I have, and again, I could be high on this. If the goal of this set was to present us most of our low and mid-tier options, and then the X-Men Animated Series was going to give us our bargain basement guys, which are like the 25 points and below guys, and then give us a bunch of like supernova level guys on the other end as the dichotomy, and not as many like 100 pointers, then I'm fine with this set. Because then you've spanned the gambit that you've needed to hit. As it is now, if I'm looking at this set and I'm looking at X-Men in the future, the only value that I see is most of these dials on cheap and making a pseudo swarm, and that doesn't make me feel too wonderful. So that's it for today's show. I'd like to thank you all for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me there is a torturous world where a man goes through trials time and time again and dies a multitude of times, only to be reborn once again to go through those treacherous trials over and over again as he's slashed and stabbed and set on fire. And somewhere in the midst of it, he has learned pleasure. Some sad, sick world that is. Or it could just be being playing Dead Cells. So there we go. Steam Summer Sale, man. That ate my wallet a little bit. I dropped like $50. And unlike most people, I've played over half of my games so far. So yeah. All right. So you can follow me on Twitter. No politics on Twitter. No silliness on Twitter. It's just new shows because YouTube hates YouTubers. That's just how it goes. You can also email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Let me know. What do you think about regenesis? Is it worth your money or is it not worth your money? You can go to donate to the show at startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. Everything you donate goes to making the show better. All right, that's it. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And remember, we